Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about 7 diminished 7 chords. These are very powerful chords, as you will find out in Theory 3, that give you a lot of color in your music if you use them right. So we've got two basic types of 7 diminished chord. We have the half diminished and the fully diminished 7. So let's start with the half diminished 7. Well, we know that a diminished triad is 2 stacked minor thirds, so let's write those. B, D, F. Right, so the B to the D is a minor third, D to the F is a minor third. So now let's just diatonically add another third on top of there and see what we get. We get that awesome chord. It's one of my favorites in all chords. So the 7 half diminished, and it's a little difficult to see on the screen, but the half diminished sign is the circle with a slash through it, is a minor stacked with a minor stacked with a major. So a diminished triad with a minor 7th on top. It's not quite as definitive maybe as this 7 diminished 7, but it's got a really cool sound. So the 7 diminished 7, what we've got is that same diminished triad at the root, but this time we're going to have another minor third stacked on top. So we've got a minor third stacked with a minor third stacked with another minor third. So there's my half diminished. Ooh, spooky. So yeah, this is the sound you hear in horror movies all the time when Dracula's about to come in. So how did these chords resolve? Well, they're interesting because they have a certain amount of tendency tones. This one has a lot. So let's start with this one. So we have the B to the F, which is a tritone, right? So we know that tritone wants to resolve in. It's the diminished fifth, so it wants to resolve in. So the B is going to go up to the C, and the F is going to come down to the E. Okay, it also has another tritone in it. That's what makes it sound so spooky. The D to the A flat is also a diminished fifth, and so that's going to want to come in as well. So the A flat is going to want to come down, so the G, and the D is going to want to go up to the E. So the tendencies of these notes: the root wants to go up, the third also wants to go up, but it's a little more negotiable. You'll find yourself sometimes in positions where you can't resolve it up. That's okay. The fifth really wants to come down, and the 7th has to come down. So in terms of what has to go places, the leading tone, which is this one, has to go up, the 7th has to come down, the 5th really wants to come down, and the 3rd is a little bit more ambivalent. If we go back to our 7 diminished 7, we notice that we don't have 2 tritones, we just have 1. So the B to the F, that still wants to resolve, just like in the 7 fully diminished 7 chord. So the C and the E. The 7th of the chord really wants to come down, so that gives us the G. And then the 3rd of the chord, for the sake of consistency, we're going to say most of the time we're going to want to resolve that up. One of the good reasons for that is that because this is not a tritone, it's a perfect fifth, the D to the A. If we brought both of them down, then we'd have parallel fifths. Now, if you're in another inversion, maybe not such a big deal. So, but rule of thumb, root third go up, 7th, 5th come down. Okay? Alright, so let's give some of these a try. Okay, so we're in C major here. We have a B in the bass with a 7 above, with 7 as the figure. So the 7 tells us that there's a 7th above the bass somewhere in the chord. It also tells us that it's a 7th chord in root position. So let's figure out what that is. So that's going to be an A. So I'll put that there. Oops. This also implies that we have a 5th and a 3rd in the chord. So let's put the 3rd up there and the 5th down here. Okay. So this one, we have the minor third to the D, the minor third to the F, then the major third to the A. That means that it's going to be a half diminished 7 chord. And you'll notice there are no accidentals in this one. One of the things that is probably helpful to remember is when you're dealing with these 7 diminished chords, The 7 half diminished 7-1 in major is going to be the only one without any accidentals. If we get fully diminished, let's try this out. So let's say that this wasn't 7, let's say it was flat 7. So whoops, come back. So we'd have to make that A an A flat. So we see the accidental there. We're borrowing that A flat from the minor key. So we have the B to the D to the F to the A flat. After the A flat, it's that minor third, making it a fully diminished 7 chord. So that's like that. So you see the fully diminished 7 chord is always going to have an accidental, wherever it is. If it's in minor, it's going to have an accidental because we need to raise the leading tone, right? So if we were in C minor, we'd have a B flat, E flat, A flat in the key signature. We would have to make that B natural, but that A flat would just belong. You'll find out that there are no, very rarely will you find the half diminished chord, the 7 half diminished chord in minor. There's a 2 half diminished chord, but that's for another day. Okay, so let's see how this one resolves. So the leading tone goes up, the 7th has to come down, the 3rd of the chord, like I said, is a little bit more flexible. Let's always try and move it up unless there's something illegal that's going to happen. So let's go up to the E, and then the F is going to have to come down to the E as well. So we've got our tritones. We have the B to the F, that's going to come in. We have the A flat to the D, that's the augmented 4th, that's going to go out. Okay? And you can see because we have 2/3 in this chord, we're doubling the third. That's why sometimes you're not going to want to make this D go up. You're going to want to make it go down to the C. Sometimes there are times, as you know, where you really don't want to double the third. Okay, so let's try this next one. This is B minor. We have a C sharp in the bass and a sharp 6 and a 5. So the 6 above that is the A. That's going to be A sharp. So A sharp. And the 6/5 is also telling us that it's going to be a 7th chord in first inversion. So if we think about it, the C, if we look one space below that A, it's going to be A sharp. So we know it's going to be A sharp is the leading tone in B, so it's going to be a 7 diminished 7 in B minor. Okay, so that's our A sharp. Let's put the 5th. Let's put the 5th in the soprano. Oop, maybe not that high. And then let's put the 3rd in the alto. So the 3rd 6/5/3 is a full figure, but we leave the 3 off because it's assumed. So I'll have that there. Oops. Okay, so let's listen to this. Yep, sounds like a good 7 diminished chord to me. So we're going to go from the A sharp, that's the leading tone, it's going to want to go up to the B. The 3rd of the chord, which is the C, is going to want to go up to the D. And this, again, it's a little bit flexible. If you need it to go down to the B, so it's a root position chord, that's okay. The A sharp to the E is going to go down to the D, that's the 5th. And the G is the 7th of the chord that has to come down to the F sharp. So this is what this one sounds like. Okay, so pause now and give these other 2 a try, and then we'll figure it out. Okay, so here it is figured out. So we have in F, it was a 7 half diminished 4/3. You'll notice no accidentals. So the 5th is in the bass, and everything resolves the way you want it to. So the E leading tone goes up, the G, the 3rd, goes up, the 5th comes down, and the 7th comes down and the 5th comes down. And then the last one is a 4/2. This one you'll see very rarely because, as you can see, it goes to a 1/6/4, which is not in any way a strong resolution. And so often this will be part of a larger progression where it just keeps on going down, and that 1/6/4 becomes a passing 6/4. So don't worry too much about seeing these until maybe Theory 3. But yeah, good to know. So this one, the E sharp is the root that goes up. The G sharp goes up. The fifth comes down. And the seventh, which is in the bass, has to come down. So that's really all there is to the 7 diminished chords. Just remember there's half diminished and fully diminished. Half diminished chords really only occur in major. You're not going to see any accidentals. Fully diminished are always going to have an accidental no matter where they are. And so the resolutions are root third go up. The third is a little bit negotiable. The fifth and the seventh have to come down. Okay? Okay.